Hello, everybody. So today I'm here with Dwight Martinez. Dwight is a close friend of mine and a great person to have around because he's very knowledgeable on what's happening right now with COVID-19 and the CARES Act. So if you could just give us a brief intro to who you are and what you do, Dwight, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so basically I own an accounting firm. I do have a CPA on payroll. I have an assistant as well working in my capacity, and I'm operating from home. So basically what my firm has done is we're making a transition to loan consulting. Obviously, a lot of my clients have reached out to me. They're trying to wonder, all right, do we need a budget? How are we going to plan for this? Obviously, our sales are down. How are we even going to pay you? So I've had to take all the information I can and learn how I can best help my clients. The way I can best help my clients is not by accounting. It's by loan consulting. It's by getting them immediate funding, getting them working capital. That's the best thing I can do for them.
Got it.
So what I did is I just watched every single Trump briefing. I did so much countless research. I had to help with my assistant as well, who is very well versed into accounting. And she actually had a little bit of loan consulting background. So I combined everything and I came up with a presentation. Presentation was initially for Section 7B. Loan consulting, and this was for SBA disaster relief.
Got it. So you're an accountant and
Yep.
you deal with a lot of business owners just doing their books and things of that nature, correct?
Yeah.
Got it.
Books, tax planning, tax prep.
Okay, but now because of COVID-19, you're helping a lot of your clients with the CARES Act and applying for these, is it loans and other applications that helps them as a business, correct?
They're essentially loans. The way I'm positioning it with my clients, though, is more of a grant. So
Okay.
the forgiveness loan is going to be refundable to the public. That's to take down the unemployment rate. They're funding the businesses so people don't have to file for unemployment. We can retain our payroll.
Got it. So they're essentially they're giving business owners an incentive to keep their people on board so they don't have to file for unemployment, right?
100%. And every funding of that, let's say it's $50,000, if you use all of that toward payroll, rent, utilities, you don't have to pay any of that back, and it doesn't count as income. So it's not going to be taxed against you for this 2020 year.
Okay, very interesting. And now talk a little bit about who qualifies and what are the requirements for the forgiveness loan, because that's the one that you don't have to pay back, correct?
Correct, yeah. So a lot of people qualify, mainly business owners, like I said, but since it is contingent on payroll, usually you have to have people on payroll, whether it's yourself. If you have an S corporation, you can pay yourself out of the business and you're a W-2 employee. As long as you're on payroll, whether it's you, whether it's your employees, you have to have some sort of payroll, and that's backdated into 2019. So mainly businesses operating over a year. So those are the main clients who qualify. A lot of people think that they can just get relief, but that's not how it works. It goes off sale and payroll.
Got it. But not everybody
No
can
problem.
qualify, right? You have to have specific requirements for the forgiveness loan, right?
Correct. Yeah. Mainly, again, contingent on payroll. How much is going to that? How much is going to rent, utilities? And then we'll do monthly sales figures, come up with a calculation based on what we did in 2019, what we did in the recent months. And then I'll calculate amount you should receive for your loan. And then I'll portray that to the government, prove economic impact, then we get our funding.
Interesting, very interesting. And what about self-employed, kind of like realtors? Is this something that they can apply for and possibly qualify for?
For the forgiveness loan, mostly not.
Okay.
Mostly not, because they don't have a payroll, so it's kind of hard. If they did open up an LLC, funnel the 1099 through that, paid themselves on payroll, then yes, we can make a good case on that. But they would meet. Yeah, good.
Sorry, there's a lot of big teams that do have a lot of people on payroll. They have assistants, they have buyer's agents, seller's agents that they do have to put on payroll and also on a 1099. So I guess if you're the rainmaker of a team, you could possibly qualify for this, correct?
You will 100% qualify, assuming there is economic impact. So if you had to close down your doors, right, or even having to work remote, your sales dropped, that would definitely prove a good case. Yeah.
Okay, great. So then there's the there's the forgiveness loan, and then there's a disaster loan, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And how does the disaster loan work exactly?
Disaster loan is up to $2 million. Forgiveness loan is up to $10 million. Disaster loan mainly is based off sales. So this has nothing to do with your payroll. Again, if this is you're a sole proprietor, you were affected by this, you can get disaster relief. That is not forgivable. You do have to pay every cent of that back, but there is lower interest rates. That's the real incentive. So yeah, that's the main thing. Just if we are running a restaurant and we're projecting 300,000 in sales for the next 3 months, the forgiveness loan won't help me that much because that's paying for my payroll. Yeah, but what about the money I was going to be getting for the next 3 months? So this is mainly off sales for that regard, and that none of that money could be used for payroll, rent, utilities. That's only for forgiveness.
Okay, and the disaster loan. Let's say that I apply for it and I get qualified, I get the money. How do the payments work? Do I have to start paying right away, or do I have to start paying like 6 months from now? How does that work?
You're exactly right. 6 months from now, so it's deferred for 6 months. And if you already have an existing loan through the SBA, that rolls over into your new plan.
Interesting. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So now you have a lot of savvy business owners, right? I'm sure you work with many, and in general, there are a lot of very savvy business owners. And a lot of them are very smart and they feel like they could do this on their own. Why would someone look for you to help them out through this process? What are the benefits of that rather than doing it on their own?
Great question. So for people that think they can do it on their own, maybe you can. But the way I tell my clients, if you're my best client, then you can give me all the accurate reporting. But it's not just the reporting that we need. We need to come up with an estimate how much loan we're going to get. We need to allocate those funds, and then we need to go to the underwriting process. So there's a lot of hiccups that can happen that we can't afford to happen. Because again, if we're a restaurant, a lot of working capital, we don't have enough put aside already. We need this funding now. Are you going to take the risk? As you know, your area is restaurant, right? Mine is finance. So mainly, I would say go through me, through consult, but you can do it yourself. I mean, it's not very difficult, but there is hiccups that you can run into.
Right. I'm sure it sounds like a very tedious process.
I wouldn't say tedious because the $10,000 grant, that's very easy. That's like a preliminary application. That has nothing to do with it. But you need to come up for the disaster loan. You need a personal net worth statement. A lot of people don't even know what that is or how to structure it. You need schedule of liabilities, fixed assets. You need tax returns. Some people aren't in compliance with tax. Some people don't have their accounting in order. Some people don't know how to forecast that accounting. So it depends on who you are. Obviously, law firms, if they have the time to do it, then I'm sure they could probably do it themselves. They have a lot of our area in compliance already.
Okay, so what would be an example of, I guess, someone trying to do it on their own? And where do you think the average business owner might be making mistakes during this process that maybe they don't know about?
So yeah, great question. And actually, I'll just relate it to a client I had today, or a potential client rather. Just had a phone meeting with him, and this is the first day, April 3rd, the first day you can apply for the forgiveness loan. He applied for it as soon as possible. He runs a martial arts academy, and he kind of went through the whole process and estimated the numbers, but he didn't get everything to a T. And I'm like, okay, so you have all this here. You're expecting a loan amount. It's already going to take some process to go into the underwriting, probably a few weeks to get a loan officer. But now can you show me the sales figures where you came up with these numbers and how you can prove that? And then he was like, well, yeah, it's kind of rounded up, or I just kind of came up with this because that's what I think it's going to happen. I'm like, that's not how it works. The underwriting process is rigorous. They're going to ask every bit of information. They need your past 3 tax returns. They need everything from you. And not one hair can be out of place. And that's what I'm there for.
Okay, so you're there to make sure that everything is in order, everything is legit, everything is recorded properly, to make sure that when they do apply, they don't waste time and get rejected. And then if they do get rejected, are you allowed to reapply, or how does that work?
Yeah, you can definitely reapply, but it's just prolonging the process. Everyone's already rushing to the start line, and now you're just kind of getting held back because you got to tie your shoe, right? So that's not even the hardest part. I wouldn't say the hardest part, but after you get approved for it, you get the funding. Now we need to make sure we account for every single cent, have an accounting plan in process, because what if we are, again, back to this restaurant example, $100,000 per month in payroll, but we didn't record that properly. So now we still owe $300,000 and we didn't even take advantage of that at all. Then we also got payroll tax credit, and I go dive really deep into that, what retaining our workforce. How can we go about doing that? So there's a lot more moving parts to it than just getting funding.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
So once you get the funding, it's not over yet. You still got to make sure that you allocate the funds in the right places to make sure that you don't jeopardize having to pay some of these, like for example, the forgiveness loan back, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
100%.
Awesome. And then I don't know if we're allowed to talk about this, but I know yesterday you briefly said that there may be another stimulus coming out soon.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say it's for sure because we
Okay.
never really know. I mean, even when the bill passed the House, they're like, okay, this actually could still hold up for another 3 weeks. Who
Right.
knows what's actually going to happen, how much of it's going to change. But yeah, I have pretty good insight that there's going to be another stimulus package on the way, especially since we were looking at the time frame, all right, looking at Easter, or we're looking at the end of March going into April to open up. Now that's got extended to May. What if it gets extended again? So
Oh,
a
I see.
part of the planning I do with my clients is let's not look at the near future. Let's not look at 2 months. We just need 25,000. I'll be fine. I want to make sure you have 75,000 so you're comfortable for the next 4 to 6, 9 months if need be. So you really got to plan for the worst. But I do expect there's going to be another stimulus package, very similar direct payments to the people, stuff like that, more small business help.
Okay. So the stimulus package that was just released was based on the fact that we might be able to go back to normal in mid-April or late April, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's how it is structured now. That's nowhere are they planning for June, July, August, which
Right.
could very well be the case. I mean, everyone's just getting the test now and seeing the whole spike. It's hard to
Mhm.
predict.
Okay. Now, what if let's say this thing does drag out, which it looks like it will, right, in terms of the virus? And what do you think would happen if they don't release another stimulus package?
Contractions in the economy.
Yeah.
So people would decline in income. More people would file for unemployment. We think it's bad now because it's been, what, 1 month?
Yeah.
And that went from 3.3 million to 6.6 million. That's going to get into double digits in terms of percentage. So it's gonna get really bad, and I think they know that. So they already have like a good stimulus process to go through. So like, all right, if that works, this is kind of like their testing process because the whole thing's really weird. If this works and we see good results from it, let's do the very similar package, except let's triple everything we're throwing at it. So that's my prediction of what would happen, but
Yeah.
you never really know.
So they probably might have to because that sounds pretty catastrophic if that happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, economy could take 10 years to recover if they don't have the whole checks and balances in place.
I see. I see. Well, thank you so much for all that because I know there's a lot of information out there, and everybody knows there's a stimulus package, but it's really hard to actually understand exactly how it works and how to apply. There's a lot of moving parts. So thank you for coming on and sharing. Talk a little bit about your background and how you got started in accounting. And because I've known you for a while, and I know you've been in the industry for a long time, and you made huge strides. Just talk a little bit about that. Because
Yeah,
you're
so
young,
I got a
so
job. Good.
it's gonna be like, oh, how does this guy, young guy, know how to, work with my money and everything? So, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, 100%. And surprisingly, I have not got too much pushback on my age. Maybe in the initial consultations where I wouldn't really see the numbers on pushback. But a lot of people, I mean, it's about trust ultimately. And I have everything professionally done. I have all my systems very meticulous. So I have great systems to work through with clients. I explain them everything, give them an engagement letter structured up by lawyers, and everything looks pristine
Everything's
to where
clean,
it's not
everything's
some
legit,
sleazy
right?
accountant or like the tax office you see on the side of the road that has a glowing sign. I
Liberty
wouldn't trust them
tax.
with my loan application. But no, so how I got started is I got a job at a CPA firm actually, and I started at the age of 22, I think it was, and I just started putting my head down, working my way up. This was all tax preparation, tax planning work. I learned basically from the ground up, learned the systems, and the CEO at the time that I worked for was very smart. He was actually 28 with his business,
Okay.
and I went with the company starting. I think it started around 8 or 9 million in revenue when I got there. By the time I left, they were doing 24 million in revenue, and I was kind of the
Wow.
pioneer of that. And I brought
It's
in,
amazing.
I would say probably, I looked at 1 year. I think I brought in like 2.4 million myself,
Ooh.
just for the company. So yeah, I was long hours. I worked every single Saturday, and I loved it, honestly. A lot of people think accounting is very boring, but honestly, I loved what I did.
Yeah,
I
if the
love the
checks are
acquisition
coming in,
process.
I'm sure you're gonna love it, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I just take back-to-back meetings. We actually did Zoom calls too to have a good relationship with our clients, and he thought that was a good scalable way to meet with more people
Yeah,
without having to
get
have,
more time.
well, one, mileage reimbursements, two, just the time allocation to get that, and what if the guy doesn't show up, what if it's just more manageable to do with your Zoom meetings.
Awesome. So then you worked for that firm for how long?
Yeah, I worked there for about a year and a half, I want to say.
Okay,
Year and a
then
half,
now
maybe 2 years.
and then you opened up your own brokerage, right?
My own accounting firm, but I
Accounting firm.
actually I opened it up while I was working with them. So
Oh,
there was a
okay.
little bit of conflict of interest. I didn't steal any clients or anything,
Uh-huh.
but there's a little bit of conflict of interest. So I started taking my own tax clients. I started with that, moved into the accounting sector, and then started building a good book of business that way. So my combined income with that and obviously my business hit a plateau, and I couldn't
Hmm.
break that plateau without leaving one or the other.
Nice.
Obviously, I mean, there's a cap anywhere you go on how much you
Yeah.
can make in any business. $250,000 is usually that cap.
Yeah.
So I decided to leave and just grow my own business because I knew it was more scalable.
Nice. So talk about
So
starting your
that's
own
what it is.
business, man, because that's pretty scary. I had to go through it when I went full time in real estate.
Mhm.
You're running your own show, and it's not always. It sounds fun. It sounds cool, but it's not always. You know the
That's the thing. There's
easiest
no more
thing.
accountability, right? There's
Yep.
nowhere like if I don't go in today, I'm gonna get fired. It's more
Right.
just like I have to kick my ass to get back up and start another meeting. So, yeah, no. Basically, how it started, I was a little timid on everything because I'm answering to myself. I'm
Right.
doing the work. I have to handle my own marketing at this time because I couldn't afford to hire Angie, who works with me now. So yeah, a lot was going through my mind at the time, and I was like, all right, I just gotta suck it up and just build some revenue. So I remember October was a really bad month for me, and then it all kind of turned around during November. During November, I just cracked down, called every single person I knew that even had any interest in working with me. I
Yeah.
set up all the marketing myself, the system, and I worked on my pitch on how I'm going to be gaining these clients. It started with an acquisition process. So one thing has to draw them in, like tax, and then I would retain them. So my
Of
retention rate
course.
is really good, retaining them on monthly recurring services like accounting work. So that's how I built a good accrual system of revenue and a stable book of business.
Yeah, that's very important. You said that about the retention because it's one thing is to get a client. It's a completely other thing to keep a client. Um, so definitely developing, like you said, a good pitch, sales skills to initially, get that meeting, get them to trust you, get them to have, spend time out of their day to listen to you. It's definitely a good skill to have. And I always preach to everybody, learning how to sell is one of the most important skills that a person can have,
Mm-hmm.
especially nowadays, because if you can, present a service or a product and get people to agree with you, you'll never be out of a job, right? So especially during these times right now where a lot of people are getting laid off, a lot of people are getting furloughed, having a skill where you could literally bring revenue to a company is crucial,
Mm-hmm.
because right now that's all that companies are going to be looking for, people who can bring in revenue. So
Exactly. One
people
one
like,
of me back at the CPA firm, right? They need another
exactly.
workhorse to bring back that revenue in, and they'll definitely treat you right for it. I mean, I know I would, right? So if I can think about growing my business, adding another person doing exactly what I'm doing, there's
Right.
another me. I'd pay him the world just to help build my business because I know if I give him $2,000 commission off one deal, I know that lifetime value of that client can be 100,000 over 2 years.
Right.
So you got to look at that. I'm just paying one for the acquisition, and that's why you can't have your pricing. At least I'm just kind of going off the top of my head, but you can't have your pricing high and then have nothing to lead it toward. So if you have 4,000 on one client, that's 3 clients a week, that's 12,000 a week. You think you're doing great, then
Hmm.
it only lasts for a couple months.
Hmm.
Marketing starts dying down. Now you only have one client, new client each month, and that's just 4,000 a month. It's not sustainable. So
Right.
that's why I switched to this more retention model, and it's very
Right.
lucrative.
And have you ever read any sales books? Have you done any type of sales training, or is it just you just knowing your product, knowing your service, and just going out there and getting after it and just talking to as many people as you can. How did you develop your skills as a salesperson and as a business owner?
Great question. So honestly, I didn't read any sales books. I wasn't very into that. I know it's very, very motivating for some people. Some people like to listen to the podcast and just kind of have it in the ear all day. I'm not that type of person. I'm the type of person to take one particular subject, do every bit of research I can on it,
Mm-hmm.
just absorb it, and then regurgitate it back to my client, and then fully understand it in terms of delivery, in terms of every single aspect, and just anything that has to do with that bit of information, whether it's real estate, whether it's accounting, tax. And that's how I got to where I am, because not only do I regurgitate it, but I also have good word tracks to be able to make it sound very appealing to the client. And
Right.
also, like, I know what I'm talking about because I do,
Right.
because I've retained all the information.
Exactly.
So I think it's more knowing your product, knowing your service, how to deliver it, than actual sales tactics. Of course, sales tactics definitely come into play,
Right.
but it's going to be more like, do I trust him? Does he know what he's talking about? Can he save me money?
Exactly.
My field, if I check all those boxes, then it's a go.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. And that's it, man. That's because knowing your product, in and out is probably the most important thing as a salesperson, because then you could handle any type of objection that they come at you, and rightfully so. If I'm going to work with you, I need to make sure that I'm going to be protected. So I am going to bring up objections. And yeah, if you talk well, you're very confident when you speak, you're going to get business. So,
Yeah,
and that all comes,
confidence. Confidence is key.
yeah, and
That
that all
is
comes
very key.
with the knowledge base, right? Because the only way you can have a lot
Yeah,
of confidence is if you know the knowledge. It's if you know exactly what you're talking about. If you don't know what you're talking about and you kind of half know things, it's going to be really hard for you to get after real hard. Because if you do know what you're talking about, you do know you can help people. You don't have an issue knocking on the door. You don't have an issue calling them, because you're almost doing them a service by reaching out, right?
yes. Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome.
100%.
And me personally, I when I was younger, I did read some sales books, and I read a lot of body language books
Mm-hmm.
that did help, little things, just to be able to see how a person was actually feeling inside. Because people can say one thing, but they really mean another, right? There's
Yeah,
subtle things that you could pick up on that will give you just a little bit more information. Maybe you ask another question because of the way that they moved. So that I did
that's
a
a great
lot
point.
when I was like 19, 20 years old, did a lot of that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, knowledge, and like they say, knowledge is power. And the more you know, the better that you're gonna be able to help yourself and other people.
Exactly.
Awesome. So where can people find you, Dwight? Do you have an Instagram, email, website? Where can people find you and get in contact with you?
Yeah, typically email is the best. Dwight at paradigm-accounting.com. That's usually the best way to contact me. And then I, book through my calendar, or if you just want to talk, I can shoot you an email back. But yeah, that's typically the best way. Facebook as well. I lost Facebook advertisements, so I'm kind of all over Facebook now.
Okay.
Facebook Paradigm Accounting. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for all the knowledge you shared with us. Thank you for coming on and, teaching me, because this also helps me talk to my clients. And, it provides me with more value to, people who are business owners, because I do deal with a lot of them. So I'll
Yeah.
definitely be, sending people your way, and hopefully you can help them out during these tough times. And thank you, man. And big ups to you. You're a young entrepreneur making it happen out here in very tough times. So
Yeah.
that's awesome, man. And
I'm
very nice.
grateful to be in the position I am to be able to help people.
That's awesome.
But yeah, to kind of go on to your point, being that person, even if you're not doing the service yourself, but actually connecting them with the person that's going to help them, that looks good on you yourself.
Yeah.
And I do that with my financial advisors. I do that with lawyers. I do that with anyone I can, because it's helping the client, and that makes me look good too, assuming they're in good hands.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much. Maybe next time we get on, I'll have a nice tie like yours, but I got to get to your level first. All right.
All right, I'll send you one.
Awesome, man. Thank you, man. Thank you.
No problem, man.